The departure. My name is Mia. I am 25 years old, and I work as a photographer in a small city. I had always dreamed of traveling to Italy, a country full of art, history, and delicious food. I had saved money for almost a year, and finally, the day arrived. I was going to Italy. I woke up early that morning, too excited to sleep. I packed my suitcase carefully, making sure I had everything I needed: clothes, my camera, travel guidebooks, and my favorite notebook where I would write about my adventure. My mom prepared a big breakfast for me, and we sat together, talking about my trip. She gave me a warm hug and whispered, "Have the time of your life. Mia, take lots of photos." At the airport, I felt nervous and excited. There were people everywhere, some saying goodbye, others waiting for flights just like me. I looked around and imagined the stories of each person. Finally, my flight was announced. I took a deep breath, grabbed my boarding pass, and walked toward the gate. As the plane took off, I watched the city get smaller and smaller through the window. I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The idea of being alone in a new country was a bit scary, but I was ready for the adventure. Arriving in Rome, after a long flight, I finally landed in Rome. The airport was bustling, filled with people speaking Italian, a language that sounded like music to my ears. I went through customs, got my passport stamped, and soon found myself in the middle of a busy Italian street. The weather was warm, and the sky was bright blue. I smiled, feeling the energy of the city around me. I hailed a taxi, and as the driver helped me with my suitcase, he asked, "First time in Italy?" I nodded, and he smiled, saying, "Ah, welcome to Roma, the eternal city." As we drove through the city, I looked out the window, amazed by the beautiful architecture. Old buildings, ancient ruins, and grand statues were everywhere. The streets were full of people walking, talking, and laughing. The taxi dropped me off at my hotel, a small, charming place with flowers hanging from the windows. I checked in, took a quick shower, and changed into a fresh set of clothes. It was time to explore. I stepped out of the hotel, feeling a soft breeze on my face. I decided to visit the Colosseum, one of the most famous landmarks in Rome. I walked down cobblestone streets, admiring small cafes, art galleries, and street performers playing music. After a short walk, I reached the Colosseum. It was massive, much larger than I had imagined. As I walked closer, I could feel its history. The stone walls were worn but strong, and I could imagine gladiators fighting here thousands of years ago. I joined a guided tour to learn more about the Colosseum. The guide, named Luca, was enthusiastic and passionate. He told us about ancient Roman history, explaining how this was once the heart of the city's entertainment. I took many photos, capturing the incredible structure from different angles. Food and the Trevi Fountain. After the tour, I was starving. I decided to find a place to eat. Following the delicious smell of food, I found a small trattoria, a cozy family-owned restaurant. I sat at a table outside under a large umbrella, and a waiter soon brought me a menu. I decided to try something traditional, a plate of spaghetti carbonara and a fresh Italian salad. When the food arrived, I couldn't believe the smell. It was amazing. The pasta was creamy and delicious, with pieces of crispy bacon and fresh cheese sprinkled on top. I took my time, savoring each bite. As I ate, I watched the people around me, families, couples, and tourists like me, all enjoying the food and atmosphere. A musician with a guitar played a soft melody nearby, adding to the perfect Italian experience. After finishing my meal, I ordered a small cup of espresso. The coffee was strong and rich, waking me up completely. I felt ready to continue my adventure, full of energy and excitement for what was next. With a map in my hand, I walked toward the Trevi Fountain, one of the most beautiful fountains in the world. I'd seen photos of it, but seeing it in person was a whole different experience. The sun was beginning to set, and the fountain glowed with soft golden light. Crowds of people gathered around, and I joined them. I learned there's a tradition here. If you throw a coin into the fountain, you will return to Rome one day. Smiling, I closed my eyes, made a wish, and tossed a coin into the water. I sat near the fountain for a while, feeling peaceful. Rome already felt magical, and I knew this was just the beginning of my journey. Meeting new friends as I was about to leave the fountain. A young woman sitting next to me smiled and said, "You must be new here." Her name was Sophia. She was a local artist who lived in Rome. She was friendly and talkative, and soon we were chatting like old friends. Sophia invited me to join her and her friends for a night walk around the city. I was thrilled. Together, we explored more of Rome, visiting narrow streets, hidden squares, and small bakeries that smelled like fresh bread. We talked about everything, from my life back home to Sophia's art and the beauty of Rome. By the end of the night, I felt like I had made a true friend. Florence, art and history. The next morning, I left Rome to visit Florence, another city I had always wanted to see. I took a train, sitting by the window to watch the beautiful Italian countryside go by. Rolling green hills, vineyards, and small villages with red-roofed houses passed outside. Everything looked like a painting. On the train, I met an older couple, Roberto and Maria. They were friendly and curious about my travels. Maria offered me homemade biscotti, a traditional Italian cookie. We talked about my love for photography, and they shared stories about their life in a small town near Florence. Meeting people like them made me feel welcomed. When I arrived in Florence, I felt like I was in another world. The city was rich with history and art. My first stop was the Uffizi Gallery, one of the most famous art museums in the world. I spent hours wandering through the museum, admiring works by Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Botticelli. I especially loved The Birth of Venus, a painting so detailed it took my breath away. After the museum, I strolled to the Piazza della Signoria, a large square filled with statues and people. I bought a gelato, pistachio and strawberry, and sat on a bench, enjoying every bite. Around me were statues and old buildings, and I felt the beauty and history surrounding me. Later, I received a message from Sophia. She was coming to Florence with friends and invited me to join them for dinner. I happily agreed. We met at a cozy restaurant near the Arno River. A dream come true. That evening, Sophia introduced me to her friends, Luca, Marco, and Chiara. They were all artists, each with a unique passion. Luca loved photography like me. Marco was a sculptor, and Chiara painted landscapes. Our dinner was full of laughter and conversation. We shared pasta al pesto, bruschetta, and tiramisu for dessert. They taught me a few Italian phrases, and I taught them some English. By the end of the night, I felt like I had known them for years. The next morning, I visited Ponte Vecchio, a famous old bridge lined with jewelry shops. Walking across it felt like stepping back in time. I treated myself to a small silver ring to remember my journey. Later, I climbed Piazzale Michelangelo, a viewpoint overlooking Florence. The city lay before me in all its glory, red rooftops, church domes, and the peaceful Arno River. I took out my camera, capturing every moment. I sat there, feeling grateful for everything I had experienced. Sophia invited me to her family's farmhouse near Florence for my last weekend in Italy. The house was surrounded by olive trees and vineyards. Her mother, Rosa, welcomed me with open arms. That evening, we had a family dinner outside under the stars. The table was full of homemade food, fresh bread, cheese, olives, tomatoes, and truffle risotto. Sophia's family shared stories about their life in Italy, the history of the farmhouse, and their love for food and traditions. I felt like I was part of their family, even though we had just met. After dinner, Sophia's father played the accordion. We danced under the stars, laughing and enjoying the beautiful night. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. Venice and goodbye, Italy. From Florence, I traveled to Venice, the city of canals. Venice was unlike any place I'd seen. There were no cars, only boats and gondolas gliding through narrow canals. I took a gondola ride with Carlo, my gondolier. He was an older man who sang traditional Italian songs as we floated through quiet canals. The soft sound of water and Carlo's gentle singing made it feel like a fairy tale. Afterward, I explored Venice's winding streets, bought souvenirs, a delicate glass necklace, and a small mask, and visited St. Mark's Basilica, a beautiful church with golden mosaics that sparkled in the sunlight. In the evening, I sat by the Grand Canal, watching the sunset. The sky turned pink and orange, reflecting on the water. I felt a sense of peace and happiness. As my journey came to an end, I felt bittersweet. Italy had become a special place in my heart. I had made wonderful friends, seen incredible art and history, tasted delicious food, and learned so much about the Italian way of life. On my last night, I wrote in my notebook, capturing every memory, every moment of joy, and every new experience. Italy had given me not just memories, but a new way of seeing the world. At the airport, I hugged Sophia and her friends goodbye. You have a family in Italy now, Sophia said, smiling. As the plane took off, I looked out the window, watching Italy fade into the distance. I knew I would return one day, but for now, I had a suitcase full of memories and a heart full of joy. Reflections and memories. As the plane soared higher, I leaned against the window and let my thoughts wander. Italy had been more than I had ever imagined. Every city, every street, every small corner seemed to hold a story. I realized how much I had grown over the last few weeks. Traveling alone had taught me independence, courage, and the joy of discovering the unknown. I thought about Rome, the bustling streets, the Colosseum standing tall through centuries, and the Trevi Fountain where I had made my wish. I remembered the smiles of strangers, the laughter of people enjoying a gelato, and the feeling of tossing a coin into the water, hoping to return one day. Rome had taught me that history isn't just something you read in books. It's something you can touch, walk through, and feel with your heart. Florence was a city of art and creativity. Standing in front of the Uffizi Gallery, I realized how powerful art could be. Paintings and sculptures that had survived for hundreds of years still spoke to people today. I had spent hours staring at the birth of Venus and other masterpieces. But it wasn't just the art that stayed with me. It was the sense of being part of something bigger, of human creativity across centuries. Every narrow street I walked down reminded me that history was alive in every brick and every building. I smiled thinking of Sophia and her friends. Our dinners, our conversations, and our laughter had filled my heart with joy. Meeting locals who welcomed me into their lives had shown me a new side of Italy, a side beyond the postcards, beyond the famous landmarks. These were real people, living, loving, and sharing their culture. Countryside peace. The weekend at Sophia's family farmhouse remained one of the most special memories. I could still feel the soft grass beneath my feet, smell the fresh herbs in the air, and hear the gentle rustling of olive trees. The simple life there felt peaceful and pure. Every meal we shared outside, under the stars, reminded me of the importance of family and connection. Rose's cooking was simple but full of flavor and love. The laughter around the table was the kind that warms your heart. I realized that food in Italy wasn't just about eating. It was about creating moments, sharing joy, and celebrating life. Dancing under the stars with Sophia and her family was a moment I would never forget. The accordion music, the scent of fresh flowers, and the soft glow of lanterns created a memory I would carry forever. I had felt completely at home, even though I was far from mine. Venice, magic of the canals. Venice had been unlike anything I had experienced before. The canals, the gondolas, and the quiet streets made me feel as if I were in a dream. Every corner had a story. Every bridge had a secret. Carlo, my gondolier, had made the ride magical with his songs, and I felt completely at peace floating through the calm waters, walking through the narrow streets. I noticed the small details, the colorful doors, the tiny balconies overflowing with flowers, and the gentle sounds of water lapping against the buildings. Venice had taught me to slow down and notice the small things. I remember sitting by the Grand Canal, watching the sky change colors. The sunset reflected on the water, painting everything in shades of pink, orange, and gold. I felt an overwhelming sense of happiness. In that moment, I realized that traveling wasn't just about seeing new places, it was about feeling new things, about letting experiences touch your soul. Learning Italian and cultural moments. During my travels, I try to learn a few Italian phrases. Sophia and her friends had helped me, and even a little Italian made a huge difference. Every time I greeted someone with a buongiorno or thanked a waiter with a grazie, I felt more connected to the country. Even simple things, ordering food, asking for directions, or buying souvenirs became mini adventures. I learned patience and kindness from the people I met. Many smiled and helped me, even when my Italian was far from perfect. Each interaction reminded me that traveling is not just about places. It's about people and the connections we make. Photography and capturing moments. As a photographer, Italy had been a dream. Every street, building, and landscape was worthy of a photo. I had filled my camera with thousands of images, but I knew the photos could never truly capture the feeling of being there. I learned to see things differently, light, shadow, colors, and movement. The morning sun over Florence, the reflections in Venice's canals, and the golden glow of the Trevi Fountain at sunset taught me that photography is more than just pictures. It's about capturing emotions and memories. Sometimes I would stop walking just to look, to observe the details, and to take a mental snapshot of a moment too perfect to miss. Traveling had taught me patience, observation, and the beauty of living fully in the present. New friendships and lasting connections. The friendships I made in Italy became more than just moments. They became part of my story. Sofia, Luca, Marco, and Chiara had welcomed me into their lives with open hearts. Even after leaving, I knew these bonds would last. We promised to stay in touch, to share photos, and to visit each other again. I realized that part of traveling is not just exploring places, but also discovering people who change the way you see the world. These friendships reminded me that even in a foreign country, kindness and connection make you feel at home. Reflections on independence. Traveling alone had been both exciting and challenging. There were moments of nervousness, times when I felt unsure, and moments when I wished for familiar faces. But each challenge taught me confidence. I learned to trust my instincts, make decisions for myself, and embrace the unknown. Italy had shown me that stepping outside your comfort zone is where growth happens. Every mistake, every wrong turn, and every moment of doubt had turned into a story I would tell with pride. I felt stronger, braver, and more aware of my own capabilities. Learning about life and joy, Italy was more than a vacation. It was a journey of learning, not just about art, history, and culture, but about life. I learned to find joy in small moments, a conversation with a stranger, a sunset over the city, a simple meal shared with new friends. I realized that happiness isn't about fancy experiences, It's about connection, presence, and gratitude. Every laugh, every photo, every memory added richness to my journey. Italy had shown me the beauty of slowing down, savoring life, and noticing the magic around me. Packing memories. As I packed my suitcase to return home, I felt a mixture of sadness and gratitude. My suitcase was heavy with souvenirs, gifts, and photographs, but my heart was even fuller with memories. I had carried my notebook everywhere, filling it with stories, sketches, and thoughts. Every page captured a moment of my journey, a feeling, or a lesson learned. The notebook would become a treasure I would revisit for years, reminding me of the beauty, kindness, and magic of Italy. Farewell to Italy. On my last morning, I took a slow walk around Venice, enjoying the quiet streets before the city woke up. I watched the gondolas move gently through the canals and felt the cool breeze on my face. I whispered a quiet goodbye to the places, the people, and the memories. At the airport, I hugged Sophia and her friends goodbye. You have a family in Italy now, Sophia said, smiling. As the plane took off, I looked out the window, watching Italy fade into the distance. I promised myself I would return one day, but I knew I would carry Italy in my heart forever. The trip had given me more than memories. It had given me courage, friendships, joy, and a deeper appreciation for life. I realized that traveling is not just about seeing new places, it's about discovering yourself, embracing new experiences, and finding beauty in every moment. Italy had changed me. I returned home with a heart full of stories, eyes full of inspiration, and a mind ready for the next adventure. Vocabulary for beginners. Excited, feeling very happy and eager. Example. I was excited to start my journey to Italy. Suitcase. A large bag for traveling. Used to hold clothes and other items. Example. I packed my suitcase with everything I needed. Explore. To travel through a place to learn about it. Example. I wanted to explore Rome and see all its famous sites. Delicious, very tasty. Example. The food at the trattoria was delicious. Traditional, something that is part of a long-established culture or custom. Example. I tried a traditional Italian dish called spaghetti carbonara. Guided tour. A trip through a place with a guide to explain things. Example. I took a guided tour of the Colosseum. Sunset. The time in the evening when the sun goes down. Example. The sunset made the Trevi fountain glow beautifully.